Everything's amazing. The first time I got a set to look the way I wanted to look, the whole vigils room, the lighting in there, the darkness of it, the moodiness of it, the way the handheld interplayed with the not handheld shots, the feeling of like there's a whole, it's so dark that you can't even tell where the walls are. And that was something I'd always seen in my head, but to actually be able to work with Tom Richmond and with my production designers and paint the walls, I remember them, because I had originally said to them, look, let's paint the walls black. And my designer, David Ensley and Tom, saying, let's not paint the walls black. Let's paint the walls like a deep, deep, deep maroon. Because you'll feel that there's something there, and yet you won't be able to see it. And that will be a much more interesting and disturbing thing than a pure black, which will just kind of feel like a black wall's there. And I was like, okay, that's not my instinct, but okay. And they were so right. When I would see the dailies, it's like, oh my God, it's like a blue black or a purple black instead of a pure black. So every day had stuff like that, where it was just you'd kind of see things that you'd had in your head come to life, and then the other thing was seeing things that you had in your head come to life better than you thought, and learning that whole lesson of having a preconceived notion as a director, but then having an actor's performance go somewhere you didn't expect. And I had that with Wally Ward a lot. I mean, he was, again, not my first visual image of Archie, and he was so playful with the character that he'd come up with stuff, and I go, that wasn't what I thought. That's better than what I thought. He'd do stuff in rehearsal. There's that whole scene where he's kind of physically getting further and further on top of Alon Mitchell-Smith, and he's kind of climbing into his lap. And that was something that happened in rehearsal. And all I ever said to him as a direction, I said, make him uncomfortable. Just don't let him as an actor get too comfortable here. And he just did this weird kind of climbing on just basically sitting on his lap ultimately, and it was just great. And it wasn't something I thought of or planned. So I saw that in rehearsal, and it was again that same kind of moment of, here's this thing I didn't even think of, and it's so much better than what I did. I mean, films teach you in a way how smart you are, in a way how dumb you are. They teach you that if you've got a talent for it, it's like, wow, I can do this. They also teach you, boy, I want everybody else to be smarter than me, because I'm not genius enough to do it all myself, and you want every single person to have really good suggestions that you would never think of. So it's both very ego-inflating and humbling at the same time. But if you can get into that, it's great. Tom Richmond, my cinematographer, our first film together was Chocolate War, being my first film. And he's done every film I've done since. And there's a reason for that, which is that he's cheap and cute. No, it's just that we have a really amazing rapport in working together. And when I was sort of casting for my cinematographer, it was very similar to casting for an actor, and I found I was attracted to the same things as an actor. I was interested in people who didn't just have a look. There's a lot of young DPs where you start looking at their work, and it's like, oh, their stuff looks like this. And if that's what I want my movie to look like, they're good for that, because that's what they do. But to me, just like an actor who does one thing, that's less interesting. The cinematographers I find most interesting are chameleons, are adapting to the material and pushing themselves. And Tom's reel already was that way. I mean, he had some really kind of silly, bad, commercial, overlit, bright stuff on it, and then really dark, moody stuff, and really, it's everything and so I gave him the script through somebody, and then he didn't get back to me for the longest time, so I actually got pissed off, and I was like, all right, well, forget it, we're moving on. And at the last possible second, I got this call going, no, I really like this, and let's talk about it. And we had a meeting, and I wasn't sure. I was very scared of a DP coming in and bossing me around. It was my first movie, but I wasn't a director. And especially when you're an actor turning director, there's this cliche of, oh, well, you know about actors, so you'll deal with the performances, and we'll take care of the camera. Don't worry, you don't have to think about that. And of course, I grew up wanting to be a filmmaker, not wanting to be an actor director. But I had images of what I want the light to be and where I wanted the camera to be. And yet I knew I didn't know enough to kind of just do it myself. I didn't want to be one of those really obnoxious young directors like, I'll just light it myself. So I needed somebody who was a collaborator. And finding that for a first time is very, very hard. And unlike actors where you can audition, you can't really audition a DP. You don't say, well, let's light a scene together and see how it goes. I mean, it'd be great if you could, but So all you have is the dialogue. And when I first met Tom's this very odd guy. He's like this weird, hippie, punky, strange dude, and I didn't know what to make of him. And I thought, is this guy going to listen to me, or is he just going to do whatever he feels like? And finally, in the end, I went, well, his reel is so much better than anybody else's, and he seems like fun. Let's just take the chance. And it turned out to be like a really great guess. I mean, it turned out to be a really because what Tom has a great ability to do is take ideas he's okay with me having the idea, which some DPs might not be, and they might be like, well, what? Because I like to, before I ever get together with my DP, I've already really thought through what I want as a visual style, a palette, kinds of shots. I do a shot list of every shot in the movie, but I want somebody to take that and make it better. It's just like I want my actors to take the script and like improve on it. I also want my DP to take my ideas and improve on it. And Tom just was the perfect guy for that, because I would sort of come in with all these ideas, and he'd go, yeah, okay, I see what you want. Now, if we do this and 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 this instead, you're going to get what you want, and it's going to go twice as fast, and it's going to be much better. For example, and sometimes it's just about saving my ass from trying to do something we didn't have time and money to do. There's a scene which is probably my favorite lit scene in the movie, which is a phone call between Archie and brother Leon late at night, and Archie's in his room and Leon's in his office. And the camera kind of comes around Leon and pushes into a close-up. And the difference was, in my shot list, I had just a 360 around Leon at his desk. You know, the camera going all the way around, kind of. And you know, Tom said, you've done 360s other places in the movie. It's done all the time, especially in young filmmakers' films. You've already done it. You've gotten your 360 in. Let's go 180 degrees, not worry about getting all the way around, and let's push in during it. So that what you've got is this sort of slow, the room is shifting behind him, but it's really more about the effect of the room shifting behind and revealing him out from behind things on his desk, because I was also going to bring the camera up and just be looking at him. He said, let's put the camera down, put a lot of stuff on his desk, and that way, this is really a film about secrets, a scene about secrets being revealed. He said, now you've got a shot that's also about secrets being revealed, and finally working their way into this very kind of uncomfortable looking up at him close-up. And yes, in a way, it started from my idea of having the camera go around, but he took it and made it a very sophisticated idea, and a shot that actually has great meaning, and a shot where it's not cool looking, it's a shot that's telling a story. And he did that throughout the film. I mean, that's one example of it, but he was constantly taking my, this is a cool shot, and going, but what's the story? What's the story that we're telling? Yeah, it's a cool shot. Does it help us? Is there a way to take your cool shot and make it more meaningful? He also did it with the lighting a lot. You know, the whole boxing match at the end, it was a real bitch to figure out how to light, because, you know, realistically, it's a dark field. And I had really thought, well, I guess they turn the stadium lights on. And Tom's point was, that's not very interesting, because you'll just have an area flooded with light, and then everything's just lit up. It's not mysterious, it's not moody, it's not, you know, contrasty, it's not. And so I was like, yeah, you're right, I don't know what else we do, though. And he was the one who came up with the idea of stringing lights. He said, you know, well, what would kids do? You know, and Tom always thinks Tom thinks like a character. He thinks, which is very rare for a cinematographer. He loves actors. I mean, a lot of cinematographers out there, it's really funny. See actors as these annoying things that get in the way of their light. It's like, oh, no, the actors, they stand where I want to put the light. And Tom doesn't really care. Tom wants to tell the story well, and he knows that's about character. So his lighting is about character. And so he said, well, what would kids do? And he said, well, kids would know, like they'd see a used car lot. It was the thing he came to me with. He said, where you string up those lights. He said, that's something they would have access to. They wouldn't have to turn on the big stadium lights and attract attention. They wouldn't, you know. So he said, let's do that. And it became so much cooler and more interesting, and it created then this little pool of light in the darkness, which was a much more moody thing than these big stadium lights would have been. But that was the kind of thing I never would have thought of. And his ability to think on a character level really informed the lighting, and then taught me about that process and going through. And every time we do a film together, he teaches me stuff. And every time we do a film, it's the same thing. I'll do this and this and this and this, and he'll go, yeah, I got it. Let me show you something. And I got to say, 99 times out of 100, he's right. The biggest single lesson of the first film, and maybe for anybody's first film, is how much it's a process of letting go. I mean, it is a lesson. Filmmaking is such a lesson in Zen. And the first one is the biggest lesson in Zen. Because as a filmmaker, as anybody, the first time you do something, you go in and you know what it's going to be like, and it's supposed to be like this, and you want it to be like that. And yet the reality of anything that's an interactive, creative thing, and I don't care if it's making a movie or making love, is it ain't going to be the way you thought it was going to be beforehand. It may be better, maybe worse, maybe, but it ain't going to be the thing you have in your head. And that was a huge lesson, not only about filmmaking, but about life for me. And I kind of knew it intellectually. I could have had a discussion with you about it, but I didn't know what it meant. And it was a huge lesson in life to go, this movie is nothing like what I thought it was going to be, and yet it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. And the difference between the meta of, it had the feeling, you know, I look at Chocolate War now and I go, yes, that was the feeling of what I was trying to do. That was the mood, it was the ideas, and yet, shot by shot, probably not a single shot looks the way I saw it in my head. And that was a wonderful lesson, and again, not just as a filmmaker, but as a human being, to go, oh, sometimes to get what you want, you have to give up what you think you want. I mean, to be in love with a woman, you have to accept her for who she is, not for the thing that you thought you wanted. To whatever that thing is, in life that you want, you can want it in a way that's constricting and kills it, or in a way that lets it open up. And that's what the first time directing a film was a huge education for me. Yeah, well, the great ending controversy with Chocolate War. It's funny. When I was making the film, I never thought it would be an issue, and it really wasn't much of an issue when the film came out, because even critics who knew the book generally were very supportive of the way we changed it. I remember Ernest Hardy, who was writing for the LA Weekly at the time, wrote a review saying I was ready to hate this and see it turned into a Hollywood movie. And then when I realized they changed things, I was ready to hate it more. And he said, then I got to the end, I realized it's actually the same, and if anything, just a more complex, grown-up version of the same thing. So at the time, I didn't think the ending was much of a controversy. And Cormier himself was supportive. I mean, he said, I don't know that I would change it. I mean, he said, you got to understand, I wrote the book a certain way, so I have it in my head. But he said, I see what you're doing, and it makes sense to me. It doesn't seem like a mistake. It just seems like, yeah, it's hard for me to readjust to it. But it was only post-internet when I started realizing that a lot of younger people who would see the film for the first time, and this is a book that's still taught in schools all over. In fact, it was last year the most banned book in high schools in America. All these years later, is still the single most banned title. I think mostly because it's about questioning authority. I mean, there's really not much sex or violence in it. I mean, there's a fist fight, but... And so what I've seen is like young people write in on things like Amazon or IMDb or whatever and say, oh, they sold out, they did this Hollywood ending, and they put a happy ending on it. And that sort of blew me away. I mean, because of course, to me, I look at it and go, a happy ending? But I understand it in that it's a knee-jerk reaction to when something has been changed from the original. The assumption is that it was done for commercial purposes. And the assumption is, because I guess Jerry wins the fight, that maybe I'm saying it's a good thing. What I would say to those people out there, if you're renting this disc and you're reading the book the first time and you're studying it in school, whatever, is take your time and take in what happens after the fight. That you've got a lead character in a movie standing there saying, I made a mistake. I did what they wanted me to do. There's a reason that he's being applauded by all his enemies in the movie. And there's a reason that you see Leon with his arm around Janza, and they're applauding and they're cheering, and the vigils are happy. It's because he's taking care of Archie for them. He's made the way easier for people who are probably worse than even Archie is. So in a way, to me, that's a darker ending. I mean, it's really about somebody in the interest of doing good ends up doing something awful. And I don't see that last scene. People also sometimes have seen, again, especially younger people, sometimes see that last scene where Obi is now the head of the vigils, and Archie's sitting there as, oh, it's about comeuppance, it's about Archie getting his. To me, it's kind of a tragic scene, because you realize, however awful Archie was, there was something that was witty and had a sense of humor and had a sense of play about him. And now he's been replaced by what, I forget which of the famous Nazis called the banality of evil. I mean, Obi's just about screwing people over and being, he's much more the guy who's going to really grow up and be an evil person. So to me, even Archie has a kind of tragic grace in that last scene. So certainly all I would say to anybody, look, and you can interpret the film any way you want. I don't feel like I, as a filmmaker, should ever say to somebody, you're wrong, about how you see my movie, because my movie is my movie, and maybe there are things I could have done different. But what I would say to somebody seeing it for the first time is take the time to take in what it is and not what your preconception of what it is. Because I think if you listen and look at it, you'll see it's certainly not a Hollywood happy ending. And it may be super dark gray as opposed to pitch black, but it's still a movie where your hero has realized everything he's done has been for naught, and where the system goes on. And to me, systems are much more dangerous than any individual. So that's all I'd ask people to look at. And then if you still don't like it, hey, I'm sorry, I tried my best, and you're never going to make a film that everybody's going to like. But it just frustrates me when I feel like people react negatively without thinking. So that's my request to the viewer. Whenever you make a film for that kind of money, and shoot it in whatever 20 days, there's going to be scenes that you cheat. In fact, we were throwing some scenes out as we were shooting. There were literally days where I'd be halfway through the shooting and I'd go, we're not going to get to half the scene. You know what? Let's do it. One scene that I always felt frustrated with. I mean, I still think it's okay, but the whole opening football sequence, I really wanted it to be, cooler even than it was. I wanted to have more things with the camera being. I wanted the whole thing with the camera tackled to be much more violent than it was. And we just didn't have the equipment, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the light. The school was only going to let us be there for so long on the playground. So that's the scene I look at now and go, oh yeah, that's sort of the beginning of the idea of what I wanted. But and that's going to happen a lot when you don't have money. You just accept that. You just go, the thing I think I have a good instinct of, one thing I think I'm smarter than I could be at, and one thing I think I'm good at is knowing what's crucial. And I think I have a pretty good instinct for, I'm disappointed that scene isn't better. It doesn't kill the movie. Whereas if, let's say, the performances between Archie and Jerry together weren't good, there isn't a movie. So I think I'm usually good going, this is what absolutely have to get. If I don't get this out of a film, this is nice. So yeah, there's a lot of technical stuff in the film where I go, but I also don't think any of it really matters that much.
I mean, if the assignment is over, Cooper, now it's just me. It's just me.